So, welcome to all of Walter's friends and family who are here to honor him and his great kindness, his warmth, and one-pointed devotion to living a life devoted to loving God. And I want to especially welcome Kim, Zoe, Gray, and Walter's family who have come from a long distance in some cases not as far, but it's wonderful that you could be here. And my name is Pamela Butler Stone, and I've been a close friend of Walter and Kim since the early 70s. It's a long time. It's amazing when you think about it. And our families have been closely connected for many years. We traveled together to Paris and India almost 20 years ago. And a special memory from the Paris part of the journey is of Walter walking to the top of the Eiffel Tower with Zoe and Saroja with great enthusiasm and vigor. And another vivid image is of Walter from our time in India, of him singing Meher Baba Godman with full force and total abandon at every opportunity that he could find. I'm especially grateful for our family's visit together in Baltimore in late July when we visited. My daughter Saroja and her baby and I had driven up to Delaware, and we arranged this time to all be together. And as if to underscore the significance of this visit, Walter had his camera on virtually the whole time and was filming every moment of our time together. And it reminds me of a beautiful quote from Hafez. "Let us make the best of this opportunity of our companionship, for on our two paths to the goal, there is the chance we will not meet again." So today's program is celebrating the life of Walter Witkowski, and it includes tributes from Zoe, Walter's daughter, other members of Walter's family, and many friends from Walter's years of working on the Meher Center. After the service, everyone is invited to enjoy chai and refreshments and to informally share stories with each other of our dear friend Walter. Also, please visit the memory table over there. There's a guest book, and there are also individual cards if somebody has something more they want to say and can, take the card away and write and not have to just stand right there. And there have been a few changes in the program since we've had it printed, so I'll mention those as we get to the changes. But we're going to start now with a tribute from Zoe Witkowski for her father.
Hello, everyone. A tribute to my father. My beloved father was one of the kindest and most selfless people I had ever had the gift of knowing. Once I became an adult and had a daughter of my own, I was able to truly grasp what it meant to be selfless. It was something that he had embodied since I first met him and my mom at the orphanage in India. While I had many meaningful and impactful experiences with him, my most cherished memories are those involving my daughter Gray. He was her absolute best friend. She was the light of his life. My mom and I were close in rank, but Gray truly allowed him to feel alive and full of energy, even in the last year of his life. He helped me significantly with childcare, taking her on many adventures, whether it was walking her in the stroller around the harbor in Baltimore, playing in the gym, or simply checking the mail. He would spend hours playing with her and singing the same songs over 100 times, just because it put a smile on her face. She always wanted to ride a water taxi with him. Many of you have seen him walking her to the beach, going to the lagoon cabin, and teaching her prayers. They often say that parents get a second chance with their grandkids. And he took full advantage of that. He was an incredible father to me, and I was overjoyed to see the bond that he shared with Gray. Today, when we talk about her wadi, we look at the sunsets, we see the beautiful pink and orange hues and say that that's him. He is always with us in spirit, and his illuminating light, joyous spirit, God-fearing wisdom, and sense of humor will carry on. He will be missed by all of us, but I know he is in a much better place now, watching over Gray, my mother, and me from above. Thank you for everything you brought into our lives.
Thank you, Zeb. So, next, asking if any of you all, Maureen, you want to share? Yeah. Come on up.
Hello, everybody. My name is Maureen. I am Walter's sister, his only sister. He was we had 9, and I was the only girl. So I had a fun life. Okay. For everyone who had the privilege of knowing Walter knows how caring, kind, and loving he was. He also loved animals. I remember Bubbles, his fish. I don't know if any of you knew Bubbles. Yes. When the power went out in the house, he blew air into the tank with a straw to keep the fish alive. Now, if that's not love, I don't know what is. And when you saw Walter's name come up on your phone, you knew that this was going to be a long conversation. You had to go find a place to sit down. Yeah, but you know what? Every time I talked to him, I felt a calm and peace afterward. And let me see, I did get to speak to him when he was at the hospital just before they took him into...
Maureen, come a little closer.
Come a little closer? How's that? Good. Okay, and one of my favorite memories is when he and Zoe attended my niece's Nikki's wedding, and he came onto the dance floor. Nikki, you remember? I mean, Zoe, you remember? He had the time of his life. He was dancing and smiling and singing. It was so wonderful. And then I also remember his hugs. He was the best hugger in the world. I mean, if you're ever feeling down or down and out, just ask Walter for a hug. Yeah. And let's see, I guess that's about all I have to say. But God bless Walter, and I love you, and I will miss you very much. Thank you.
Price, did you have something? Oh, you wanted to share something too. Great. Wonderful.
Walter Collins. Walter Collins? Okay.
Michael?
Oh, okay.
You got it. Okay.
Walter, meet me at the altar. I'm Michael. Walter and I are the 3rd and 4th of 8 sons. And over at the memory table, wherever, you can tell which ones we are, counting down 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're 3rd and 4th of 8 sons and 1 daughter born to our parents. growing up in our large family, all the children paired off. So Walter and I paired off. So he's the closest to me in age and also in my heart. We remained close over years, even though as we went into adolescence and adulthood, we took different paths. And despite Walter having a temper, and it was easy to get him into a temper, we did that sing song, Walter, Walter, meet me at the altar. He'd go off like a rock. That's why we did it, of course. But Walter always had a good sense of right and wrong. He had a heart for the less fortunate, and he consistently has been a defender of the weak. You all know this. I'm not telling you anything new. Walter's also a U.S. Marine. I think most of you know that, and he was a Purple Heart recipient. But he was not a combat Marine. I don't think he ever fired his weapon at another person. He was wounded while transporting Marines and supplies in Vietnam, for which he earned his Purple Heart. And aside, when Walter returned stateside, and I was talking to him out in California, where I was stationed in Marines at the time, he was telling me about this new place they were putting him until he mustered out. It was a top security base, and everybody there, they had to change in civilian clothes coming and leaving. It was in New Mexico. I kind of think maybe that's where Area 51 was, and he was, seriously, and I think he was in charge of that. Not in charge of it, but he was working on the security there. Anyway, after discharge around 1969, Walter was settling in Miami, which is where our family was at the time, and he bought a second/third-hand used car that barely run and was looking for work. Then, in quick succession, he encountered Mayor Baba at a small group in Miami. 2, turned back the jalopy, and then 3, borrowed enough money to come here to Myrtle Beach. 4, and never looked back. Over the years, Walter and I had many discussions/agreements where I would read or study about Mayor Baba, and he would read or study the New Testament. Frankly, it never happened for either of us, so we respect each other's opinion, but we were, I don't want to use the word comfortable, but we were where we thought we should be. However, over the years I now realize that Walter and I have much in common. A, we both believe that there is one true God whose essence is love. B, and this one true God demands love from his followers, disciples. 3, we both believe one very important way to love God is to love and help our neighbors. I'm a quote from the letter of James in the New Testament keeps popping up in my mind when I think about Walter these last few days. It really does. And as you've probably heard, the quote is, "Faith without works is dead." Walter's faith was never dead. And we also believe that life does not end in death, at least physical death, that there is an eternal soul. Now, we disagree about a lot of the details about how all this happens, but we do believe those things. Thinking about Walt, I keep coming back these last few days to 2 things. One is the last 2 verses of the Channel of Peace of St. Francis. It is in giving of ourselves that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal life. The other thing is that silly song I started with, Walter, Walter, meet me at the altar. Because for me, an altar is a place of worship, and I do believe eventually I will meet Walter again at an altar somewhere in our afterlife. And I think he's listening, so I just want to tell Walter I love you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the family wanting to share? Okay. Price, were you going to read something from Barbara? Okay, well, you can be spontaneous. No, you can't find it.
So, I am not Barbara, but I'm here on her behalf. And I think, as most everyone, maybe everybody knows, that she fell and broke her hip 2 weeks ago and was released from the hospital yesterday. She's back home and she's doing splendidly, and she really wanted to be here, but she couldn't make it, understandably. So she has written something that in my busy day I haven't even read. So I will read it, and it might be a horrible reading, but you just have to bear with it. I will say this too, I have never seen Barbara happier in her life as I've known her. And it's a combination of things. One of them is she's retiring from the center job, and it's all accelerated, not at her pace or her plan, but obviously in someone else's plan. And she's really going along with it, which I'm really enjoying and surprised to see. But one of the nicest things is from the day after she had the accident, the way her kids, her family have responded. Every single day, somebody has come to spend time with her, and she has relished it so much. And we've had one family member after another, including Liz, the oldest, who came right away and is coming back this afternoon as Isaac leaves and goes back home. Our youngest son, Zach, was here for a number of days with his 2-month-old baby boy and his wife. And that brought a lot of joy to Barbara, especially in the hospital, because as she's sitting in the bed and has nowhere to go, the baby gets put on the bed with her, and it's kind of a joyful thing. But Amy, who lives in Australia, many of you know that, just couldn't take it that she wouldn't be with Barbara in this time. And it's always irked her and caused her heartache that she lives so far away, and in the case of a tragedy or emergency, she can't get here. But that has not deterred her. She is, I think, in San Francisco with a 13-hour layover, and she arrives early tomorrow morning. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, that answers all the questions that anybody here may have. How's Barbara doing? Okay.
Okay.
So this is what Barbara wrote, and Isaac sent it to me as a text. And I'm going to read it, and I can say that Barbara absolutely loved Walter. Always did. Just a special place in her heart, and I think it was mutual. So here's what she says. I first met Walter in the early 70s, 50 years ago. I don't have an exact time frame, incidents or detailed stories to tell, but I knew Walter well back then. And it's about those memories and an ongoing deep friendship with him that I want to share. Back in the early 70s, Walter joined the young community of Baba lovers beginning to populate the areas around the center. He was super tall, long and lanky, and very fit, and as I recall, fresh back from the war in Vietnam, having finished his commitment to the Marine Corps. Walter, being immediately a volunteer at the center, his devotion to Meher Baba was like cement. His His personality was that of a young seeker. His heart was on his sleeves, all of them. His head in the love in the clouds, and his work was to be kind for no reason, except that that was what was needed, kindness. Walter joined the center workforce in those early years and covered many duties. He was always, and I mean always, generous, loving in his work and relationships. He had a purity about him, an innocence, and an automatic trust in others. His spirit is fun and acceptance of others, their idiosyncrasies, their foibles, their gifts, their bad attitudes, their mistakes, their joys, and a total acceptance of his own of all those things. I loved him very much. He was the guy that always made things better, deeper and more loving, always. That's it.
Okay, we're going to hear from Malcolm next, and I believe that there's a slight change where Dennis will be speaking after instead of Lee McBride, but it will all unfold. Let's see. Thank you, Malcolm. Just stand close to my 6 inches.
J. Bob.
A little closer, you can maybe hide it.
Walter and I have known each other for half a century,
Closer.
like many of you people. Baba said it's only through love that we can begin to unlearn and eventually put an end to all that we don't know. Walter and I have known each other for a lifetime of learning, unlearning, and wearing away. We shared an intimacy together like many of you feel. It was easy to feel close to Walter. Maybe he was someone who didn't have as much to defend, to keep himself apart.
Very hard to hear you. Yeah, hard to hear you.
I can't seem to get it to stay up high.
I'll just talk louder.
Okay, you can come a little closer, stand closer.
One thing Walter and I shared was a love for running. We both loved to run. I used to see him running in Briarcliff as the years went by, and towards the end, even when he was barely able to, once in a while he'd end up jogging on the roads in Briarcliff. When he and I had a chance to chat in those days, he'd always remind me of how we used to run together. And we're talking 50 years ago. We both worked on the center, and at lunchtime every day, we'd change our clothes and go for a run down to the beach. He'd run on the beachfront, I'd run through the dunes. And it was beautiful back there where the deer and the foxes and the raccoons walked. We'd meet back up again in Briarcliff and head up Middlegate, Patterson Drive back to the center. That was probably about 3 miles or so. And we both, each of us train on our own on weekends, and then we'd go off and run races together. 10Ks and marathons together. And Walter always seemed to finish the marathons. Columbia, I think it was Virginia Beach twice. He always seemed to finish them before I got home. But he could run. He'd run the whole 26.2 miles in under 3 hours. which means he's running under 7-minute miles the whole time. And he wasn't even training that much. He ran hard. He lived hard. He could really push himself. There are two intimate experiences I want to share with Walter in the next couple of decades after the running. One, we were in Mehrabad in the fall of 1996. We were on the hill when Kim and Walter brought Zoe to Baba's Samadhi for the first time. Walter was absolutely bursting with love. His face was beaming. Another memory, when Linda and I got married, we asked Walter to marry us. At Briarcliff, we walked on the beach up until we were in front of the center. It was at the fall equinox 25 years ago tomorrow. It was sunrise and the sky was glorious. Just Linda and me and our 4 kids and Walter. Simple ceremony, just vows. But there was a love, a beautiful power, intensity. All 7 of us were in tears. My image of Walter, earnest, sincere, and committed, fun-loving, warm, loving. I love you, Walter.
And now Dennis McCabe will share some memories.
So I'm just going to share a few things about dear Walter. And as most of you know, he was the MC at the Friday night meeting place programs for over 30 years. He did a wonderful job. He was very dedicated. He almost never missed. And actually, he loved the programs. And his closing readings, as probably many of you remembered, was filled with so much feeling and heart. And you could say about Walter that everything he did was full of heart and heartfelt, and especially when he would sing in the meeting place, when Bao was there, and it was done with full force and often off-key. Meher Baba, God Man comes to mind. And speaking of Bao, Walter introduced, as far as I can remember, every single Bao talk in the meeting place. Now, over the years, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of talks. So that's quite an accomplishment. And then personally, I'd say that Walter's one of the finest people I've ever met. His character was so loving and kind and thoughtful. And I can also say that in all the years I knew him, I never heard him backbite anybody once, nor did he speak negatively about people, which I find very admirable. And then lastly, many of you don't know that Walter performed weddings. And the second wedding he ever did, he married Marty and me at Brooklyn Gardens. And afterwards, we had a big reception, at his home for the whole community. So I can just say Walter was a dear friend and a great man. Thank you.
Denny? So Denny Moore is on his way up to the stage, and he'll be sharing some old memories, stories. Just stand kind of close, 6 inches.
It's unbelievable to be here with you. And it was unbelievable I could ever get to be on the center. But I was one of the people that Elizabeth asked if I'd like to work on the center, and it was a certainly. Who wouldn't want to work there? And it was many wonderful years. Working with Walter was a joy. We'd get together first thing in the morning after we got run around the original things we have to do, like clean the bathrooms and clean the kitchens, and then we'd meet together. And we developed our own plan of how we go about cleaning the cabins, and it was so easy. I mean, it was just the same routine all the time, and but it was so special too. I can't keep on going here.
That's fine.
I think Al.
Oh, Stuart, I think next would be Stuart.
Oh, okay.
Stuart, and then you and Al will come up and
Okay.
do May Her Baba Godland in honor of. Thank you, Denny. Do you want me to introduce you or do it yourself?
Okay, is this good?
Yes. Come a little closer.
All right, so honor you, Kim and Zoe and Gray. So Walter and I met in 1974 when I first moved to Myrtle Beach, first time around. And Walter was working on the center. And I thought, well, this is a very dear man, wonderful, bright spirit, and profound kindness and goodness in him. And I was also impressed with how hard he worked in his physical work in the center, aware of that. And we did some things together with Community Volunteer Services and Happy Club, which was bringing some community black children onto the center every Saturday, and we got to know each other better as time went on. And then Walter married Kim, and Zoe came along after a while, and Walter became a real estate agent, and I didn't see that coming. And he was so good at it. As I remember, he became the manager of a very busy real estate office. And he got even better at it, and he was very successful. He did really well. The whole time, that dear Walter shone through, always that brightness and goodness and kindness, and especially this wonderful soft spot for the black communities. And on the side, he would put time into things he would do there. And we got to know each other better. So I want to leave you with one dear memory of mine. And the center, a lot of people know, has for years provided Thanksgiving dinners to a lot of the black people. And they're wonderful packages. You know, it's not one big dinner, it's individual packages and delivered by Baba people. So one year, Walter and I were delivering together, and we went to this one home, and there was an older, ailing woman who Walter had known for many years, and they shared some love together. And her 40-something son was also there, and he and Walter were reminiscing, and Walter was kind of prodding him with memories. And he used to go to Happy Club, this 40-something-year-old guy. And after a while, he started to cry. And Walter put his arm around him, and the guy just leaned into Walter and cried. And Walter just sweetly held him. And that's one of my best memories with him.
How beautiful. Okay, and now John and Mary, somehow our sequence got a little thrown off. George and Frank Eaton were going to be here and then are not, and just trying to go with this flow. And Mary, do you want me to bring the easel?
Well, George and Frank would have wonderful stories, so I hope they still wander in. The words that have been used to describe Walter are just perfect for what we're about to talk about, but I heard kindness, selfless service, compassionate, present. Walter was present. Whenever, when I first met Walter, so this goes way back, Michael, you might have to help me with this, but when I first met him, he was Joseph. When he came here, he used the name Joseph, and he had a huge beard. This was a long, long time ago. I had to check my memory on that, but that's how I first met Walter. And Michael, I'm going to borrow from you, but that faith without works is dead. That's what Mary and I are going to talk about for a few minutes, what Walter did. And Stuart just mentioned it in the community. When I first met Walter, other than him being Joseph, I remember, we would come for Elizabeth and Kitty and Jane. I mean, the highlight of coming to the center, besides coming to the center, was to be with them, to meet them and hear their stories. But they were on the center, but not in the center. We'd go to Dilruba or go to Jane's home to be with them, and it was wonderful. But when we came into the center, there was Walter. He was present. And when he greeted you, Walter was greeting you. It wasn't he wasn't there, as the PR for the center. He was there because he was Walter, and he was truly happy to see you. He made you feel so at home on the center. And so now we're going to move forward quickly. In 1973 is when Mary and I came to Myrtle Beach, and that was to work with Community Volunteer Services, a service agency that Elizabeth and Jane had basically created. They did it with other church groups and church leaders, but they were the inspiration behind it. And they somehow were able to talk Mary and me into coming and working with CVS, and we did. And as we did it, then Walter became one of the key volunteers in the work that we were doing. And what Stuart said is what I remember. Walter began taking on the task of making sure at Thanksgiving, families who didn't have it had a turkey and all the fixings. And at Christmas, those children who didn't otherwise have presents, Walter was there, and he took care and made sure that those children had presents. So now we fast forward to almost the current time when I meet some of these old community people now on the street, or we just get together. I expect them to come up to me and say, "How are you doing? What are you doing now?" The very first words out of their mouth without fail was, how is Mr. Walter? Not how are you, not how is Mary. The second words would be how is Mary, but John was low on that list. But the very first words were, how is Mr. Walter? To this day, it still happens. And this really brings home the point of faith without works is dead. Because what Walter, yes, he did do these service kinds of things, you know, the presents, the food, but that's not what the people remember. That's not what the families remember. What they remember is he was present with them. He was a heart reaching out to them. No questions, not talking about what you can do better in your life. He was just there. And to me, that's the highest form of service, just to be present in someone's time of need. And that's what he gave the most of. Thank you, Walter.
So there's several people in this room right now, if they would raise their hands, who are all involved in CBS in the very beginning. Raise your hands. You can see a lot of people here. You could stand up because you're so beautiful. You're 50 years older. So I met Walter in 1971. I hitchhiked from California. I was with my Baba contact, and we saw a picture of Wisteria on the center. And we said, where's that? And within 2 days, we were hitchhiking to Myrtle Beach. And when we got there, we came in the center, and I thought if you go through the gate and you don't get God realized, you're really messed up. And it didn't happen. But then we met Elizabeth. I met Elizabeth, and I knew from the moment I met her, she could see all the way through me, that she knew it, you know? And so when somebody can see all the way through you, you don't get scared anymore because they already know it all, right? So that time on the center, we stayed, and Jane came up to us. There was a whole bunch of us that said, would you come back this summer and would you run a camp on the air base for the children in Happy Club and Race Path, Harlem, the Pig Pen? That's what the names of all these neighborhoods were. And we said, yeah, but where could we live? Can you let us live on the center? And Jane said, sure. Well, then she went and told Elizabeth, and Elizabeth was, but Elizabeth said, once you give a promise, you got to keep it. So we got to live on the center all summer. And Walter was in it. Barbara was in it. Malcolm was in it. Mary was in it. Who back there? Dell was in it. Dennis was in it. We were a whole bunch. I don't want to leave. Denny.
Were you there?
And guess who else? Stewart. All of us were in it, and guess what happened? We taught these kids how to swim in the swimming pool. Walter taught them how to bowl. We all had different things we did. We didn't know what we were doing. But the thing was that the Elizabeth and Kitty and Jane, it wasn't about you're supposed to know what to do. You just, their sense of oneness, Elizabeth and Jane and Kitty's sense of oneness would get us so excited and so involved that we just do it, even though we didn't know what we were doing. Right, Mary? Mary and I used to teach them how to swim in the pool. Anyway, after that summer was over, CBS was started in the high school, in the Myrtle Beach High School, with a concern for the students. Charles was there, Wendy, and...
Don't get old.
Okay, I don't want to leave anybody out, but the point is, Pat Burrell and other people were worried about the conflict between the races, and they started a program called the Community Service Council. And when those kids graduated, the parents started community volunteer services, and that's how it started. And I just have a few things to show you because I was asked to talk about CBS. So CBS started, Mary used to go down before she became a nurse, and Dana Ferry and a bunch of people. And every Wednesday at the old fire station downtown, they would bring people in, and doctors would volunteer their time, and they would get help. These people had nothing, okay? Every year there was a huge flea market, and every church, the air-based women, every synagogue, all kinds of groups, each had a booth. And this is a picture from the newspaper of the different booths. And then we would go in. Elizabeth would get stuff out of her attic. Everybody would give stuff. And if you knew what Elizabeth got out of her attic, you'd try to get it, okay? And the money that was raised this way, and I'll be quick, John. The money that was raised would go to the Eckerd's drugstore on 21st Avenue, and the people who the doctors volunteered to see could get medicine for free. Wow. So that was the beginning. And then John was hired as a family service director, and he started getting an actual program for health, and eventually came Friendship House that was on Canal Street. Okay, this is Jane Haynes' original notes about, and I'll pass it around, that Community Volunteer Services was founded in 1968 by concerned volunteers, and it had projects, health services, it had a prescription services, supplementary services, family services, where John was the first person who was hired, and he was in his Barracuda, that was his office, and we were in Race Path, and the people in Race Path were so incredible because they're generation upon generation upon generation, 4 or 5 generations of families who all know each other, who still live there. And there was so much love there that they invited us to come in with them. And in there, we built Neighborhood House, the first preschool, and it got the first federal funding for Horry County, and got Head Start came later. So all that happened because of that community's capacity to love so hard that we could connect, and we could integrate, and we could support each other. And so this is the beginning notes. Here's one of the things. When Neighborhood House was dedicated, it was called the House That Love Built. And the house was given to us by Andy Lesnick and his family. You know, Elizabeth loved to move houses. She loved to move anything. We moved it from Cherry Grove all the way down. And we got a grant for $10,000 from the Presbyterian Task Force on World Hunger, because my dad was a minister. He helped us get that money. And we renovated the building. So I'll tell you one more thing about Walter. He was always there. He was always there. After the air base, summer camp, I thought Walter was kind of, why don't you move faster, Walter? Why are you so slow, Walter? I didn't realize that he could listen. Then he could feed back what he heard so the person could correct it and give more information. And he connected with people. His capacity to do that was remarkable. And once you connected with him, he didn't try to fix things so they look good on the outside. He connected with you on the inside. And that's what made him so powerful. And the last part is, the air base said, okay, we've got 2 semi-trucks full of bomb crates. And you can have them, you guys at CBS, to renovate Neighborhood House, but you got to do it in 2 weeks. Okay, so bomb crates are what, 2x4s, and then at the end are thicker pieces of wood with a little curve in them for the bomb to sit in, right? So we ripped those suckers apart. And Walter was a maniac with it. We'd work 8 hours and we'd think, we'll never make it. It was huge. It was a mountain. But we made it. And guess what? The 2x4s went into building Neighborhood House. And the ends that were thicker went into keeping people warm all winter in Race Path. Because they still don't have garbage pickup. They still don't have all the sewer. So if you're interested, on the 5th of October, we're having a community cleanup. And if you're interested, we need help. Okay? And Walter would love it if we all helped.
So, I think we're ready for a song now. Denny and Al Grasso.
Come on up.
Do you need another chair, Kathy?
You know, it's already been mentioned how Walter loved this song, Meher Baba God Man, and how he sometimes was off key. So if we're off key, it's intentional so we remember Walter. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba God Man. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, God Man. He is ever birthless, He is ever deathless, and He comes in man form, even for the faithless. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, God Man. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, God Man. He is here, He is there, His house is everywhere. He is here and He is there. His house is everywhere. Everywhere, 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 everywhere. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, God Man, God Man. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, God Man, God Man. That's not over yet. Do not do anything while doing everything. Do not do anything while doing everything. Meher Baba, everybody come on now. Baba, Meher Baba, God Man. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, God Man. Meher Baba, Meher Baba, Meher Baba, God Man. Jai Baba, thank you all. Amen.
The hand movements, this was Walter when he was doing the song and on the stage, and what love.
Looks like he's enjoying it. Okay, now we have Peter Goodman sharing a poem.
Thank you. My dad, Stephen Goodman, wrote this poem, and he posted it on Facebook like the day after Walter passed. Walter, forward you carry your heart-filled smile, your loving gaze, and all the while, you are still here. Where can you go? Only closer to someone's breath, without the physicality of so-called death. Your kind and gentle voice is with me now. In the beloved's name, you take your bow.
Okay, Kathy and Jeff. I just wanted to say that the song they're about to do, the music was written by Kim Witkowski right here. And the words were by Val Kalchuri.
I guess this has to come down. What do you want to stand up or?
Thanks for writing this song. Whoa. It was that last song that did it.
Yeah, that was Walter kind of got in there.
Oh moon, oh moon, oh moon, you are and will be, may you shine in me. Everything is in your hands. You hold all the world's keys, and everything and everyone you can always see. May you shine in me, oh may you shine in me. Oh moon, oh moon, oh moon, you accepted me as your slave, and I am fortunate, but for your embrace, how long must I wait? My prayer, hear my prayer. Dear, come and be with me. May you shine in me, oh may you shine in me. Oh moon, oh moon, oh moon, my heart is broken and I can't bear the pain, but worth living is this life, and loss is really gain, and this pain makes me love you more and makes me happy. May you shine in me, oh may you shine in me. Oh moon, oh moon, oh moon, you are and will be, may you shine in me. Oh moon, oh moon, oh moon, you are and will be, may you shine in me.
I'm out of breath. Whew. What's that?
Go ahead.
So, I have very fond memories of being with Walter. I mean, what a great guy. We had a magnificent time. We were on the cabin crew together for years. We did a lot of the night watch duty between ourselves. And yeah, it was really, this was in the time of Kitty and Elizabeth and Jane Haynes, Bob Brown. On the weekend we have Bob Brown and Jim Meyer and Kathy Riley and a whole bunch of these people, Ward Parks. They would be singing up until the last moment, and then Walter and I, being on night duty, we have to kind of usher them out. Not always diplomatically, because no one wanted to leave, you know. But he he was so fun to work with. He was always happy to be with you and always happy to work with you. He didn't have any attitude. Walter didn't have an attitude. He was just, hey, let's go. So it was really fun to work with him. And the thing that was most, what we've all touched on, how loving he was. And he was so loving to the guests, to grandmothers, to parents, to little kids, to teenagers, to young adults. He was always, he entered, into their lives so beautifully. And he and I would go every year to India at different times. And Erich would always encourage us, to go back and love and care for the center guests as we, the Mandalay, have cared for you.
That's beautiful.
And Walter was a real embodiment of that. Boy,
Just take a moment, it's all right.
it was amazing. Walter, I would say he loved like the Mandalay. The thing about the Mandalay is their love for you never diminished. It went on increasing. And I never found Walter ever to lose interest in anyone. How incredible that he was able to just continue to have interest for over 30 years, 20 years, 50 years. With each one, it was something beautiful. And he was much loved by the Mandalay, and we're all here because he was so, this is a celebration of his love. And so Erich really loved him, and this is a quote from Erich that really captures Walter, where Erich says, "Live your life on the stage of this world to such an extent that when you depart, Baba gives you a standing ovation." So let's give him a standing ovation. Unbelievable.
Thank you. And there's Walter celebrating and enjoying this standing ovation and the love. We're running quite over, and instead of people coming up to the mic and sharing, we're inviting people to just share informally among ourselves at little, at the tables and whatever. There's food and chai down at the counter, and enjoy and continue this honoring of Walter. Thank you for coming.